The cat's out of the bag and the curtain has been pulled back. This is arguably one of the weakest bull markets and decouplings of traditional bull market rallies that we've ever seen. As XRP recently, and we're talking as late as yesterday, dumped down to $1.94. This has left many XRP holders wondering, does it get worse? Because things are bad now, but this has the potential to be one of the nastiest dumps crypto and XRP holders have ever experienced, especially into some major macro events that we've been expecting to pump markets. Maybe that's what drove them up in the first place. For example, we've seen many companies file for that spot ETF. People like Grayscale, 21 shares, Bitwise, and CoinShares, among others. Or the fact that the SEC is now backing off and completely dropping investigations into Robinhood, Uniswap, Gemini, Consensus, and even Coinbase. So why hasn't it happened for XRP yet? Many people believe this is exactly what's going to happen, but if this does happen, typically you'd expect markets to rally. All we've seen is markets crashing and dumping. And of course, everyone expected crypto to rally extremely hard under the most pro-crypto presidency under Trump by bringing innovation back to the United States and actually softening their stance towards crypto companies. However, this hasn't done anything to move the markets further. And so with the recent dumps, this could be a sign of a major crack in the economy. And that's what I find so interesting. The day of Trump's inauguration actually marked the local top on all of crypto. And since then, markets have been bleeding and we are in a technical crypto recession now, which is anything down over 20% from the highs. And as of right now at $84,000 on Bitcoin, and $2.14 on XRP, or down 37.6% from that all-time high. This is what you would argue is a recession. So what's really going on? Is the worst of the crypto dump still to come, or did we just witness the last major flush on leveraged longs as euphoric bulls get taken to slaughter before the next leg up? So if you're watching this video, you're likely one of two people. You're an XRP holder who's wondering if you should still hold your bag or start selling if you're in profit. Or you're another person, you're thinking about buying XRP for the first time, or maybe adding to your current XRP position in portfolio now, but what's a good level? Well, stay tuned because I'll uncover some interesting stuff looking back at history and also a few posts, and then some on-chain indicators and futures data to see what's really going on and give you a grand overview of the market and potentially give you the answers that you need to feel confident in the volatile market on the decisions that you make about your portfolio. And as always, even if you're feeling not too bullish, but you're feeling blessed, still comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the channel, my friend. If you're new here, my name is Paul and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDefi, PAULIEDEFI. Now, it's extremely important to pay attention to Bitcoin if you're new to crypto in general, or even as an XRP holder. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is the mothership and it's really what's driving this whole deal. In other words, if Bitcoin goes up, typically it creates for a positive market environment for other cryptos to go up like XRP. XRP isn't the only good crypto in the space. However, it is one of the best. Still, its market cap is relatively small compared to that of Bitcoin, especially when we look at market caps and what drives the markets. As you can see, the majority of the market is Bitcoin, sitting at $1.66 trillion. Then our next closest bet is Ethereum at $268 billion, which is far smaller than Bitcoin. And then number 4 now is $124 billion XRP versus Tether sitting at 142. In other words, on this dump and crash, people were selling a lot of their cryptos and then buying and holding, or better yet, just holding Tether in order to mitigate some risk. So yes, over the last 7 days, XRP is down quite heavily. And over the last month since the inauguration, it's down almost 38% from its all-time high. And it's not just XRP. I mean, the whole crypto market's really just a bloodbath over the last 7 days. And anything that is up just slightly is likely just making a bounce off off of those lows, but generally speaking looks extremely weak. So what's really going on? We're not too sure, but from a macro standpoint, things were already not looking too good. From the Fed keeping interest rates really high, or the fact that we now had a yield curve inversion cross back over into normalized rates, which is typically indicative of a recession. We've been talking about this for quite some time. People say, well, the bull run isn't over. However, the bull run was already lasting from all the way at the start of 2023 through the end of 2024, and nobody says that it has to go another year. Although generally speaking, here are the previous Bitcoin cycles. As you can see, the purple line right here would be your 2012 cycle. This darker green line would be your 2020 cycle. The 2016 cycle obviously performed slightly sooner. However, it performed worse relatively. Then as of right now, according to the data and where we're at in the market cycle, we are actually decoupling. By now, usually the market continues to rally and make for some new all-time highs, or at least pushes for them. Whereas right now you can see this yellow circle is pointing to the fact that we are truly decoupling. And this might just be because we actually are getting what we've asked for, which is institutional investors. And the problem with institutional investors is that they mess around with all sorts of fancy and technical financial products, stuff that they're privy to and have traded really well over the years. Back in the day, this was truly a retailer's market. So when we saw bull markets rally, they rallied hard. But as more institutions have entered the space, it's become harder and harder for us to actually make money, which is why this altcoin season has been by far the worst that we've ever experienced. Even if you're an XRP alone type of a person, in other words, you only buy and hold XRP, it's been a great market for XRP, but for virtually everything else in the market, it has been terrible. And so I'm going to look at this post from Kyle DeChass talking about Bitcoin and why it's crashing and why it's causing everything else in the market to crash. And he's calling it the cash and carry trade that's suppressing Bitcoin's price. And without getting too technical, especially if this is confusing for you, I can see how this is working and why it's so dangerous to be a market participant among many wolves. For months, hedge funds were exploiting a low-risk yield trade using Bitcoin spot ETFs and the CME futures. This is how it worked. They would buy Bitcoin spot ETFs like BlackRock or Fidelity. Then they would short Bitcoin futures on the CME. In other words, they're buying spot product, they're shorting over here. They would farm the spread for 5.68% annualized returns. However, because some of them were using leverage, and I believe many of them are, because these are people who know how to use leverage to juice their returns, they were actually earning closer to double digits. In other words, they really don't care what happens to Bitcoin. They don't care about your financial future. What they care is to earn outsized returns in a product that is volatile, where a lot of people that are less educated investors are playing in the market, and ultimately they want to exit with some profit. However, the trade depended on Bitcoin futures trading at a premium to spot. With the recent market weakness, that premium has collapsed, and the result is the trade is no longer profitable, which is why funds are exiting, and Bitcoin sell pressure has skyrocketed. And again, if Bitcoin sell pressure is going up, so is the sell pressure for the rest of the market, and it's very hard to argue because the data is there. So no matter what anyone says, this is just the reality. We can no longer accept the fact that we have to buy into hopium for the future, or the fact that institutions are here, or the fact that some company has a boatload of utility. At the end of the day, you're seeing it happen right in front of your eyes. Markets can crash with all of the positive news in the world, and that's because typically by the time you hear about news, if it's not already caused the price to pump, it's already priced in, which means you probably shouldn't be buying news. You should be buying the rumor. And we all continue to buy and hold the news. In other words, just look at the brutal ETF outflows. Over $1.9 billion in Bitcoin sold this past week. And by the way, this is also from the major fund managers for their clients. It's not just the funds doing it, but they're probably doing it on behalf of their clients as well. So he asked the question, why is this happening? And he really states the case perfectly. Hedge funds don't actually care about Bitcoin. They care about returns. They don't care about crypto. If they did, they would continue to hold and buy it. However, they've been selling it, which means they've been using their positions to earn. And when the earning is no longer there, they are willing to dump. This is the brutal, cold truth and reality of markets. So what exactly happens next? Well, there's going to be a cash and carry trade that will keep unwinding. which means we're likely going to see a little bit of further downside, and Bitcoin needs to find a real organic buyers, not just hedge fund. Volatility will remain high as leveraged positions continue to get liquidated. So let's go ahead and look at those levered positions now. So the first thing I want to do is look at the liquidation map. It actually gives us a pretty good read, and I've noticed it's actually better than most indicators when looking at what's going to happen next with either Bitcoin or XRP. It's important to pay attention to both, because if there's some sort of a negative correlation, in other words, one is trading one way and one's trading the other, something might actually be off. But generally speaking, they're both trading in the same direction, which means if one is bullish, the other's bullish. If one's bearish, the other's bearish. Now, one may outperform the other seriously. However, generally speaking, this remains true. So as you can see, I am on the Bitcoin 1-day time frame. I'll go ahead and get rid of the leverage on all of these exchanges and just focus on these cliffs. As you can see, there is more leverage on the long side. This means long liquidations to the tune of $3.6 billion. So whenever we get a bigger red side versus a bigger green side, this typically means more people are bullish. But it's important to note that this is only on the daily time frame. I'll even go ahead and refresh it just to be safe, and you can see that it's still pretty much the same. So then I'll go ahead and go to a 7-day time frame, and this is where things get really interesting. Typically on the 7-day time frame, this is more of a read for what's actually coming and what direction you can trade in, especially if you're in a swing position or holding. At the end of the day, we still have far more shorts, as you can see here, up to the tune of almost $7 billion versus longs to the tune of $3 billion. We have over twice the amount of shorts, which leads me to believe that the majority of people are positioned short still, and that is not a good sign of what's to come. So let's see if that same thing remains true on something like XRP. And I'll go ahead and remove all of these guys just so you can see that this is cumulative. We have far more shorts to the tune of $217 million versus $122 million on XRP 7-day time frame. So although things might look bullish today, generally speaking, traders are still bearish, and I've seen this play out quite a bit to the point where I pay more attention to that 7-day period than the 1-day period. So let's go ahead and take a look at this futures data really quickly for Bitcoin and then XRP. As you can see here, this right here is the open interest, which means the total amount of contracts that are being traded both on the short side and the long side. To simplify things, whenever we start to get the price going down and also open interest going down in similar fashion, this is indicative of longs closing their positions. In other words, there were less and less longs after the all-time high right here. As you can see here, at some point in time though, when the market really started tanking, especially into this dump, more and more open interest positions were being opened. So whenever you get price going down and open interest increasing, this is indicative of shorts opening at the market. Many people were starting to open heavy short, and that's exactly why the market tanked heavily. And that's what caused all of these aggregated liquidations to the long side. Anyone who was long was getting liquidated, and we're talking in a single 4-hour period on this one candle to the tune of $245 million. And it just kept happening over and over and over. When people thought the blood was done, it continued to happen. Now, as you're seeing these very nice V-shaped bottoms and recoveries, and I would argue it's going to be no different right here. It's likely that we're probably going a bit lower before we go higher, considering we just looked at where the majority of futures traders are actually sitting on their positions. When we look at the fact that even though open interest is now declining, the price is declining, that longs are closing, however, longs are not opening at the market. Now let's go ahead and look at something like XRP. So I'll go ahead and pull up XRP. And as you can see here, this entire range since the lows when it dumped really hard back on February 2nd of 2025 down to about $1.76 and then rallied back up to around $2.20 some cents. Open interest has actually remained relatively flat and slightly declined, which means there's no interest for anyone to really take leverage into this type of a market. All we've seen is a bunch of long liquidations on XRP right here, and then yet again right here with some V-shaped bottoms. But generally speaking, we would like to see open interest increase into a price or direction change. And right now we have not seen that. All we're starting starting to see now is a perfectly textbook head and shoulders. And this is not the news that people want to hear, but I'm just showing you exactly what I'm seeing on the chart right now. So although this guy is saying we might see more deleveraging and a cash and carry trade unwinding, I personally think the path of least resistance now is likely to the downside. So this is its last hurrah and its last opportunity to get some level of support right down here between $1.99 down to potentially $1.85, right in this range here, which we're going to look at here shortly, in order for XRP to do well. Now, really quickly, before we dive into the technical analysis and tell you what I think is going to happen over the upcoming weeks and month with XRP, head on over to bullrunners.com to check out Altcoin Pro University. You should land on the page that's actually more of a description and then shows a video, but on the other side, you'll be able to get access to all sorts of really cool things like our posts from our pros and experts that share all sorts of value that you simply will not get on the channel because we don't have the time to cover it. But we explain everything from what's happening to what's gonna happen to the fact that some members are doubling down in crypto because they're seeing great returns and results, to the fact that we have bull market strategy guides in a university library that shares everything with you, from crypto strategies and guides on how to buy, when to sell, risk management, yield farming, the how-tos of staking with wallets, how to spot legitimate tokens, how to create an XRP wallet if you want to do DeFi with XRP, the dangers that you need to avoid, narratives and breakdowns when it comes to AI, decentralized science, everything about Ripple and more. So if any or all of that sounds interesting to you and you want to join one of our paying members inside of the other side, then head on over to bullrunners.com to check it out. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain, and every single day you wait could be the end of this bull market. So potentially this is the bottom of the bull market, and we see the market rally over the upcoming week and month, and guess what happens? You were in the moves because you were involved on the other side, where we share everything with you. On the flip side, if this was the perfect time to sell, you might have more information on the other side that's going to save you tens of thousands of dollars. So again, just check it out. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I personally think the bull run could potentially go through May, and so every single day you wait is another day you can miss out on an altcoin pick or a call with one of our pros and experts where you can ask questions and learn how to do technical analysis and fundamental analysis like a pro. So if any or of all of that sounds interesting to you, head on over to bullrunners.com. Let's get back into the video. So I'm not going to lie, this is going to have to be XRP's last stand, especially when we look at lower term timeframes. If you look at that hourly time frame, this is truly a textbook head and shoulders, and actually it is across the board. So right here, you have your neckline. As you can see, it's determined by all of these touch points here. What we had a previous all-time high, and I'll try to zoom in right there. I know it's a bit much, but right here you can see where the previous range high should say. When we broke out above it, we remained above it and only ever touched back down for a support. So what used to be a resistance now becomes a support. And then in similar fashion, supported here yet again, one time, two times, went and broke for new all-time highs for a head, and then we came back down for that first portion of the shoulder. Now it's very much possible and potential this could have been rallied really strong to the upside and made for some new highs. The problem with this, the V-shaped recoveries more often than not fail pretty hard. So now I'm going to start to toss some other things on the chart, but this is not looking too good. This is our last range of support, and if we break below the $2 range yet again, yes, this could send this thing flying right back down, I would say, to the $1.50 range. It's very much possible and potential, considering this would be a complete head and shoulders top. To add to a bit of that overhead resistance, we have a stupid amount of volume traded between $2.40 down to $2.30. So that said, anything in this range now is going to be very difficult for XRP to break above. Even if we pump right back up to the $2.30 range, it's more likely we break back down to the $2 range, and we're going to need some sort of a catalyst or new buyers entering in order to see XRP pumped even harder to the upside, which I think at this point is unlikely. As sad as that is to say, I am currently holding my positions, but I'm watching this $2 range extremely closely because I've been adding consistently at the $2 range and holding. However, this market has failed to prove to me that it wants to make new moves to the upside. Then if I pull that 10 and 20 EMA up and put it on a daily time frame, you can see that we are actually being sold off right here, and we actually never had a crossover on the 10 and 20 EMA. We almost did right here, and I was tempted to continue to add to my positions there. However, I wanted to see a break above the range high, so I'm glad I didn't, because I've been adding at the $2 range and the $2.23 range, but some of my positions are a little bit underwater and the majority are above water since we entered way back down here. Relatively speaking, we're still up, but I don't want to add any more risk to this bag. So even though it is XRP and even though it is a strong performer, things are looking bearish across the board, and so I'm watching the $2 range extremely closely, and I would urge the viewers on this channel to do the same. I hope that we save you a bit of heartache if this thing dumps harder. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think we could potentially see some sort of a catalyst that brings us up to new all-time highs that will come sometime in May. The problem is it's more likely we come here first to the $1.50 range before making those new highs. And so if I were to pull up Bitcoin, and let's go ahead and look at Bitcoin, I see something similar happening. You can see that we're well below the 10 and 20 EMA, failed to break out. I mean, this is a very long range, especially before we broke down on a lot of leverage. And so the real next range of support is somewhere way down here, and I'll go ahead and put a box in there, between 73,000 to 67,000, and right now we're not there. All we're seeing is some V-shaped recoveries on the hourly and the 4-hour time frame, but we might actually be sold off here even if we start to rally like this to the upside. Typically these things are prone to failure, especially in a downtrend, and so they'll get you all tuned up for the move right here, right, and then it breaks right back down into a new range low, and so it's more likely to me at this point in time this is truly a decoupling of what typically happens, and that's because of institutional leverage and smarter players. So as more and more of those big players enter the space, these markets are going to be harder to trade, and that leads me to believe we're no longer going to see the same types of cycles we used to see with Bitcoin or with XRP or with anything in crypto. You can no longer buy crappy altcoins, which I think is good. A lot of the money is going to fly into safer assets like XRP. Still, my major buy zones at this point in time are now going to be 73,000 down to 68,000. I'm holding my bags, but I'm being very cautious. And XRP, although it looks stronger than Bitcoin right now, I think will actually paint a picture very similar to this, where it breaks down further from its neckline. So that's it for the video, folks. I hope you enjoyed it, even though it's probably not what you wanted to hear. I still wanted to provide you the value and the insight that I have for this video. I was recently on a trip for a little while, so I haven't made a video in a few days. I apologize for not being around. You can't be on a market 24/7 that trades 24/7. So thanks so much for being patient with me. And also, if you want more in-the-minute access, and by the way, I'm actually going to be live now on the very first of the 4th, or March 4th, I should say, for my very first call that is live in the back end only for Altcoin Pro University members. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want more feedback, you want more analysis, you want more questions answered, then you have to be a member at Altcoin Pro University. Head on over to bullrunners.com. You can find the link in the description below. You'll get access to that. You'll get access to my posts from here on out. I'm going to start doing 3 to 4 posts per week, and I'll also be having all of these things updated as we continue to update our courses, our classes, our technical analysis, everything. You're going to get so much value that you're going to be happy that you joined now versus later. You've got to do it in order to get access to some of those bonuses and to get access to these calls. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, my friend. Goodbye.